jacket glowering over him. It seems plausible that Silver Jacket had something to do with the two helicopters
Han är
being
från the
shot
future
down.
man. Han är
Silver
från
Jacket
different
points the
timeline.
business end of a revolver at the protagonist's face, but after a moment decides to send him back into the realm of dreams rather than end his life. Coming back to consciousness for a second time, the protagonist discovers he wasn't the only one
Journey
spared.
begins.
A dazed and clues, the protagonist encounters a young woman in a swimsuit with an extra arm and leg. He recognized her as Virginia Puffton,
Det gjorde inte
daughter
jag.
of Edward and Barbara Puffton. Despite the obvious physical mutations, Virginia is friendly enough, if not a little timid. She observes the protagonist from a distance and runs when approached by him. This is in contrast to the island's many tribal inhabitants, which quickly begin hunting him. When the protagonist begins delving into caves, looking for clues and equipment that will help further his objective, he is confronted by a waking nightmare, starting with cadaverous humanoids wearing featureless faces, followed by hobbling torsos vertically bisected to form gaping maws with protruding ribs for teeth. They would often spew viscous clear gunk that coated and solidified on the surrounding cave walls. But worst by far were the babies. Barely recognizable, the pint-sized mutants rolled and flung their mangled bodies at the
Betyder det att mutanterna har samlag om de har bebisar? Jag har aldrig tänkt på det.
Protagonist in numbers, chipping away at his defenses. This horror is contrasted by an abundant and alluring gold metal ore, which permeates many of Site 2's caves. Within the bunker where the VIP keycard is found, surveillance footage reveals a pivotal moment in the genesis of the mutants at Site 2. It shows Puff Corp executives and guests of honor all gathered in a banquet hall. All at once, the wealthy undergo a writhing transformation, becoming the mutants that now plague the island's subterranean locales. The protagonist investigates the banquet hall, discovering the deceased mutated forms of many important individuals, most notable being Edward
Det var
Puffton.
han, ja!
Fortunately, Virginia and Barbara Puffton's chairs are vacant, indicating that they either were not at the banquet or that they somehow escaped unscathed.
Okej, så han är
The
dead.
protagonist
Okej.
notices a magazine that spotlights
Jag gillar honestly att jag och Göra skämtade om att vi gick förbi någons döda kropp, och det gjorde vi actually. Vi gick förbi en av dem vi skulle leta upp. Vi gjorde
a
actually det.
revolutionary new metal. It certainly looks like the metal he has observed within the caves of Site 2. This reveals another possible motive for Puff Corp's acquisition of Site 2, to extract and profit off of this extraordinary metal. Indeed, an email exchange between two Puff Corp employees confirms this suspicion. Rob Blue informs Jackson Pullett, FYI, this is what we are looking for, following the statement with a picture of the golden ore. In addition, other magazine articles refer to artifacts composed of unknown metals, hinting at a deeper conspiracy as to the significance of the golden ore, but more on that later. With the knowledge that Edward Puffton has died, Virginia Puffton is safe above ground, and Barbara Puffton is still missing, the protagonist sets out to investigate the remaining Puff Corp bunkers. After traveling across the island, the protagonist enters a remote bunker that requires the maintenance keycard to access. Only a short distance in, he stumbles upon a chaotic fight between a large baby-spewing mutant
Yeah, what the fuck?
and a young man.
What is this?
The protagonist recognizes the man as Timmy LeBlanc, one of the team members
LeBlanc.
that flew to Site 2 in the other Puff Corp helicopter.
Det var det, okej.
Timmy gained notoriety when he was saved from Site 1 during the events in the forest. Although it's been more than a decade, Timmy still bears the same scar on his forehead. The protagonist and Timmy stand off against the mutant and are eventually joined by
Så det är Timmy från ettan.
an older man who makes his relationship to Timmy known.
Get down, son!
Så det är den man spelar som i ettan.
This is Eric LeBlanc, the main protagonist from The Forest and father of Timmy. Neither of the LeBlancs are strangers to abominable mutants and strange ancient artifacts. Years ago, the lives of both Eric and his son were irrevocably altered when their flight crashed onto the peninsula known as Site-1 due to an EMP
Ja,
blast
Site-1,
originating
så det är
from
två
an
olika
ancient
öar.
artifact. Eric
guess.
and Timmy survived the crash only for Timmy to be abducted by Dr. Matthew Cross. Matthew planned to sacrifice Timmy's life to save the life of his own daughter, Megan Cross. While searching for his son, Eric would come to learn that Site-1 was owned by a company known as Sahara Therapeutics. Sahara employed scientists such as Matthew Cross to perform genetic experiments on unwilling human subjects by exposing them to the effects of ancient artifacts that were found on
Vänta Gura, var du här i chatten innan? Pappan i familjen som vi letade efter, det vi skämtade om var sant. Vi gick förbi hans döda kropp utan att vi visste att det var han. Det vi skämtade om var actually true. Vi gick förbi honom.
Peninsula. Most of these experiments resulted in abominations not dissimilar to the ones that would later inhabit the island known as Site-2.
Neverlook.
However, the ancient artifacts also appear to possess other capabilities. To resurrect the dead, cure disease, emit bursts of energy, and even interact with parallel universes. In the end, Timmy was both killed and later resurrected by these artifacts. The artifacts, however, imprinted a permanent scar on Timmy, leaving him with inner demons along with an instinctual understanding and fascination of parallel universes. Returning to the present, a third character enters the chaotic scene. Without warning, Eric LeBlanc is shot by the individual in the silver jacket, who is accompanied by an armed escort. Moments after, the protagonist is knocked unconscious by the mutant behemoth.
Han bara trampar
Eric
på sig.
LeBlanc might have recognized Silver Jacket as she shares a remarkable resemblance to Megan Cross, the then younger girl he encountered at Site-1. Megan Cross allegedly perished at Site-1 all those years ago. However, stranger things have happened around the ancient artifacts on these two islands. Timmy himself was brought back from death by the Resurrection Obelisk. Since returning from Site-1,
Yeah.
Timmy has devoted himself to studying and understanding the concept of parallel universes, writing a renowned book on the topic, Parallel Universes and Travel Between Them.
Ja, det var
This
därför vi hade de
phenomenon appears to
böckerna.
be central to the mysterious capabilities of the ancient artifacts. Parallel universes could explain many of the parallels between the Forest and Sons of the Forest. In the Forest, Virginia is one of the mutants created by Sahara Therapeutics when they used the Resurrection Obelisk ancient artifact on a 12-year-old girl, resulting in her mutations. Virginia grew additional appendages and resembles a more severely mutated version of the Virginia that the protagonist encounters at Site-2 in Sons of the Forest, Virginia Puffton. Similarly, Silver Jacket could be a parallel, grown-up version of Megan Cross now working for Sahara Therapeutics. Even if Silver Jacket is not Megan Cross, it is reasonable to speculate that these interlopers are agents of Sahara and have either caused the catastrophe at
Ja, jag
Site-2
missade det.
or are at least interfering with Puff Corp's investigations into it.
Oh.
A headline news story from the Sunset Times asserts that Puff Corp outbid Sahara Therapeutics for a remote island.
Oh.
In addition, an annotated stock chart indicates that following the start of the bidding war for the island, Puff Corp's market value began to grow, while that of Sahara Therapeutics plummeted. Then there are the handful of messages between Puff Corp official Jackson Pullett and Hector Leader, a possible Puff Corp spy that was sent undercover to work for Sahara Therapeutics at the Site-1 Peninsula with the goal of relaying important information back to Jackson at Site-2. Hector sends photos of two different artifacts found at Site-1 to Jackson and suggests that they may be related to a certain cube found at Site-2. The two artifacts that Hector reports on are the Resurrection Obelisk and the Power Obelisk, both playing pivotal roles in the events on Site-1 involving Eric and Timmy LeBlanc. If this cube is indeed a related artifact, then it is likely to possess similar properties. From these emails, two conclusions can be inferred. The first is that Puff Corp and Sahara Therapeutics have a shared history of conflict centered around Site-1, Site-2, and the ancient artifacts therein. The second conclusion is that the true motive for PuffCorp's purchase of the Site-2 island was to safeguard the cube from prying Sahara eyes, while also giving themselves unrestricted access to study its capabilities and how it might be utilized to their advantage. Returning to the protagonist, he survives the behemoth mutant attack by yet another miracle, awakening to find the room deserted and the doorway he entered through completely blocked by the now dead mutant. Descending through the bunker, searching for an alternative escape, the protagonist finds a couple printed emails that reference the cube. One mentions that the artifact causes a brief dimensional switch. Another has a typed entry that is summarized rather bluntly by a written note, "Safe in cube." The protagonist also stumbles across a curious suit of armor that appears to have been forged from the revolutionary gold metal found throughout Site-2's caves. Either it was created by PuffCorp or it was yet another recovered artifact. Regardless, it could prove useful, so the protagonist stowed it in his pack before continuing on and finding a way out of the bunker. Days pass as the protagonist exhausts all other leads. He eventually befriends Virginia Puffton, who shows a proclivity for ballet and shooting multiple guns at once. Before leaving Site-2, the protagonist aims to discover the fate of Barbara Puffton, as well as the source of the mutants running amok. Just
Fuck
over
vad
2
jag
weeks
inte
since
skulle
his
ha dödat
arrival at
henne,
Site-2,
dude.
the
Fuck
protagonist
me.
enters the last bunker marked on his GPS. Deep in the bunker, he discovers what appears to be a young girl's room. The point shoes, along with the small ballet stage and bar, indicate that this room likely belonged to Virginia Puffton. Logically, the private collection of paintings and decadent abode at the base of the bunker could only belong to Edward and Barbara Puffton. The pieces of artwork on display are expertly painted and all feature the same subject. While the surroundings change, the golden cube remains as a constant. Upon further investigation, the protagonist discovers that something broke into the Puffton's bunker bathroom. Stepping through the steam, he emerges into a small cave and discovers a gold door with exotic patterns and a hand-shaped seal. Following his intuition, he dons the suit of golden armor and lays his hand within the seal. Upon contact, a group of discordant chimes resound from the doors. There's a click, followed by the loud and drawn-out sound of metal grinding against rock as the doors slowly swing open. Carefully, the protagonist makes his way into the cavern. The air is stagnant and polluted by the acrid odor of brimstone. An orange glow can be seen in the distance, but before he can get close enough to make out the source, a low guttural hiss emerges from the shadows, giving him pause. The source of the noise stepped into the light. At first, the protagonist mistook the monster for another mutant, but something was different about this creature.
Det här är
It
demons.
didn't share the disheveled and haphazard appearance of the mutants. Rather, it was organized and purpose-built. 2 memories flitted through the protagonist's mind. During his first day on the island, he stumbled upon a holy cross. Because of his limited arsenal
Men
at
han
the
har också
time, he
fucking
foolishly
tatuering.
attempted
Bara
to use the cross
kill
against the
demons.
mutants. Of course, it didn't work. The idea was utter lunacy. But then came the other, more recent memory. It was of a scribbled note he found in the Puffton's abode, mere minutes before discovering the golden door. It stated rather simply, "Crosses burn demons."
Den
Fishing
hittar vi
through his
också.
pack, the protagonist pulled out the cross and raised it towards the lunging demon.
In the name of the Lord.
It staggered back as if repelled by an invisible force and bursted into flames.
Så det är demons.
Moving forward, he found the source of the orange glow. It was magma. Cross gripped tight, the protagonist continued making steady progress through the personal slice of hell. Further on, he plucked a hand-drawn diagram from a skeleton. A note in the top left stated, "Cube activates every 8 cycles." The protagonist recognized the diagram as resembling a moon calendar, which he had seen on a magazine cover elsewhere on the island.
Oh.
He read that one moon cycle is roughly 29 or 30 days. Perhaps those were the cycles that the note was referring to. Thinking back to his mission brief, he recalled that the Puftons were missing for no less than 31 weeks upon his arrival at Site-2. The protagonist quickened his pace through the magma tunnels as he did the calculations in his head. 31 weeks is enough time for a little more than 7 moon cycles, and it had also been a couple weeks since he arrived on the island. If the cube's activation did coincide with the disappearance of the Puffdons, then he may only have hours, perhaps minutes, before the cube would activate again. The protagonist
Ja,
was
jag visste
moving so
också.
fast that he almost
Ja, jag
missed
vill
it.
inte bara
Beside a
förstöra
pool
det
of
immersion
lava,
för
he
Gurra.
found several hand-drawn notes that were in
Och han visste det, men
miraculously
ville inte
good
förstöra för mig.
condition given the circumstance. The one that caught his eye depicted a large cube with a written note beside it, "Stay in the cube." Reading the ominous message, the protagonist solidified his resolve. He wasn't sure what the cube's activation would do, but he was going to make sure that he was inside it when it happened. Rushing onward, the protagonist sprinted to the bottom of a magma-lit cavern.
Så man kan egentligen bara
Pushing
springa
himself
förbi den.
through a crack in the wall, he saw it, the giant golden cube.
Och sen bara
The
är det en
clever
random
Timmy
människa där.
LeBlanc was there too, and he waved the protagonist over. A laptop was in Timmy's hands with a large countdown on display. It would hit 0 in less than a minute. The protagonist was just in time. As the cube began to close, the protagonist's companions barely slipped in behind him. They were followed closely by Silver Jacket, but she was too late and the cube shut her out. Just like when the protagonist opened the golden door, a series of discordant chimes resounded through the cube and it began to shake, as if it were in motion. Unexpectedly, Timmy clutched his head and started to collapse. A plethora of parallel Timmys suddenly emerged, vanishing just as quickly. Timmy was still living a cursed existence due to the experiments performed on him at Site 1. And he did have plans to visit Site 2.
Side 2, där är
Perhaps
the
this,
island!
Getting inside the gold cube was his goal, as whatever the cube did to Timmy seems to have exorcised the demons from within him.
Ooh.
As Timmy regains his composure, the cube shudders to a halt. With a flash, the cube face opposite to the one they entered through vanishes, revealing a futuristic and alien cityscape. As he stood there staring, the protagonist felt the golden armor begin humming, resonating with the cube. It is unclear whether it was the protagonist's gesture or if it was just a matter of time, but the view of the future cityscape briefly flickers, then vanishes, replaced by a rocky cave wall before the cube shuts altogether. It would appear that the note on the artifact causing a brief dimensional switch was accurate. Turning around,
Fan, vem
the
hade
original
inte
side of the
stuckit till
cube that
den
the
mer
protagonist entered
advanced?
through opens back up, revealing what was once Silver Jacket but has since been transformed by the cube into a writhing mutated mass. From this, it can be deduced that the cube's activation was responsible
Så det var kuben? Okej.
for the catastrophe at Site 2 and disappearance of the Puffdons those 8 moon cycles ago. Barely escaping with his life, the
Cube is
protagonist
smart.
is left with a final choice: to leave with the LeBlancs and his companions, or to stay on the island, continue fighting the demons that inhabit it, and solve the mystery of the cube. That is the story of Site 2 and Sons of the Forest, or at least the story regarding the major events that take place. But take it all with a grain of salt, as there are lots of articles and pieces of evidence that were not discussed here, and many gaps in the narrative needed to be filled by speculation in order to make a cohesive story from start to finish. Even then, I personally have many questions that I was not able to answer by exploring the game. Some of these questions are simple, such as the identity of the protagonist. He looks like Carl Planter, pictured on the maintenance keycard,
Oh.
but that doesn't really fit in with the story. If the protagonist
Ja, jag
was Carl
tror det kommer
Planter,
mer
why wasn't he on the
flushed
island
out
when
story.
the first catastrophe
Fler
occurred?
caves och fler
Or at the very
bunkers tror jag.
least, why didn't he have his own keycard? There are also questions regarding the ultimate fate of Barbara Puffton, how long the Puftons were on the island before the catastrophe occurred, and just how it is that Timmy beat us to the cube, bypassing the gold door and a horde of demons. There is also this
Yeah,
page
what the
with
fuck?
symbols and
Yeah,
corresponding numbers, and I have not found these symbols anywhere else in the game.
Jag tror det
There are
kommer.
more nuanced questions, such as where the true demons come from, why people outside the cube turn into mutants, what the range of the cube's mutating capabilities when activated is, and if it can be augmented or suppressed. Then there is speculation to be had on the many references to holograms and virtual reality. giving rise to the question of whether the events that take place in the game were all just part of a simulation. I think there is a lot of room to interpret and speculate when it comes to this game's story
Man kan
ending,
slänga in
so share your
simulation
thoughts in the
i
comment
allt.
section. This is
Come
a new
on,
style
man.
of video I am trying, so please let me know if you liked it and would like to see similar style videos covering other games.
Där är en,
I also
kolla
want to
guys, där är en mer advanced civilization än vi. Vem hade inte stuckit dit? Come
take a
on man.
moment to thank my collaborator and good friend Crazy Flips, who provided invaluable help in researching Sons of the Forest and in designing the assets used in this video. If you want to see more great content, you can head over to my channel, and if you're
Hur
new,
mycket
consider
knowledge
subscribing.
har
You're
inte
helping me
de?
feed my cat. Her name's Marshmallow. Have a great day. If you're here today, have a great Monday and a great week. And as always, thanks for watching.
Oh, the music. Bum, 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 bum. Okej, så han är en cat guy. Okej, så vi ja. Jag måste bara kolla. Virginia, vad hände med? Secret ending? Åh ja, hon är med! Hon är med! Varför var inte hon med de andra gångerna? Och varför hör man hans fläkt i bakgrunden? Jag ångrar att jag dödade henne. Hoppar hon dit? Man hör han bara hon måste ju dras dit på något sätt. Nej. Okej, så om man hjälper henne så är hon i the cutscene i slutet. Han glömde den var on, man. All right. Och nu försvann hon, eller va? Nej, där är hon. Och vad hände? Dör hon? What? Hon dog! Man hör han bara dog hon? Det var så jag såg dig göra, det bara står där framme. Hon hänger med, hon överlevde. Hon får plats! Okej, men okej, vi måste tänka. Hur hade det fungerat i Civilization? Alltså folk hade tittat på henne som ett freak på något sätt. Hade man kunnat blamea birth defects? I don't know, för det alltså en birth defect brukar vara typ något litet weird, men hon har actually en functional perfect extra arm. Kanske kan ta bort dem. I don't know, men sen hon pratade aldrig. Hur fungerar det om tvillingar sitter ihop? Styr de båda eller är de uppdelade och styr varsin del? Och sen, men hon styr ju allting själv. Hon har bara literally en extra arm. Hon brukar kontrollera varsin del, okej. För hon har ju bara extra arm. Och om hon får barn kommer de också ha extra limbs. Det är så många frågor. Ja, jag tror hon blir fucked, för hon pratar inte. Och ja, det är true. Hon har inte alla hästarna i stallet. Det är sant. Så hon kommer nog hamna på sån special care, I guess.